I'm not seeing my picture.
Second.
I'm not seeing my face.
Okay, close that window. All right, Joe, you're all set to start.
Okay, we'll call the Town Hall Renovations Project Building Committee to order. Mr. Barron, would you please take the roll if you'd be so inclined?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Members are asked to signify their presence when their name is called. Councilor Badraco. Councilor Minor.
Here.
Mr. Claffey.
Here.
Mr. Mortensen.
Here.
Mr. Murtha. Mr. Woods. Mr. Harpy.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion for approval of prior meeting minutes.
So moved, Rod Mortensen.
A second?
Second, Chris
Any-
Minor.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 The ayes have it. Minutes are approved. Public participation. James, do we have any member of the public looking to address the committee?
We have two members on with us for the public. Barbara is on and somebody in 084. If any of them are interested, they can use *9 on their phone, or in the participants window, they can raise their hand to be recognized. We'll give them just a moment. Okay, the phone number ending in 084 has raised their hand. We're going to unmute them and allow them to talk.
Okay, would you state your name and address, please?
Sid Murtha, I'm on.
Oh, is that Ed?
I'm on.
Okay, Ed, we'll leave you unmuted there.
Thank you.
No problem. I was thinking that was you. I just had to check. All right, perfect.
James?
Yes, sir.
Gail has indicated that she's having a problem getting into the meeting.
If she wants to give me a call in the office, I'll get her in.
Okay, she has your number?
Yeah, she's called me a few times.
Okay,
Go ahead.
let me just text her. So we don't have a member of the public looking to speak?
No, it doesn't look like Barbara's interested.
Okay, we'll continue then. Project update. Frank from Downs?
Yeah, thanks, Joe. So looking at the financial summary, starting with the change order request approved from the last committee meeting, we had roughly 2,600 in approved changes. So that brings our revised GMP value to 28,706,709.85. And between what we've carved out as far as pending changes are concerned, including the approximate values that we're currently vetting either with design team or subcontractors, that value is $23,218, which would bring our total anticipated final GMP value to $28,729,927.85. Within the CM contingency, again, we started with 831,809. And to date, in terms of what is approved against the CM contingency, that total is $560,760.25. What we have pending right now, total $60,800.64. And a good chunk of that, about 40,000 of that, is give back to the town in savings as we get closer to the end of this project. And we have a comfort level giving some of that contingency back. Of the 60 grand, there's about 40 coming back right now. So factoring that in, the 60,864 leaves us with just over 200,000, $210,248.11. In the owner's contingency, So we started with 868,405. That was based on a reconciliation we did a while back with the town back in January of this year. Based on the approvals that we've received from the last committee meeting, brought us up to $808,162.77. The pending changes nets out to a small add of $1,391.80, which leaves us with an approximate value of $21,826.09. And if all the approximates, vet out, fall within the estimates that we've come up with, leaves us with just over $37,000 in owner contingency. Within the soft costs, as you guys know, we have not tracked anything against owner soft costs. We just showed the original amount that was carried in the GMP, which is $1,706,810. The CIP was something that we had tracked out of one change order proposal. The total project budget at this point in time is $30,473,764.08. Any questions on the budget snapshot?
Frank, it's Joe. On the remaining owner's contingency, you mentioned a give back of 40,000 when you were discussing the,
The CM contingency, we actually have a COP prepared this evening of a $20,000 give back. And I believe that is COP 326. And we're preparing another COP that we would plan to present in November for another 20,000 of give back out of the CM contingency.
all right, so that will be reflected next month in the owner's contingency?
Yes.
Okay. And
The
then
20,000, if it's approved, it will be reflected. The other
Right.
20 is still being carried as an approximate value right now.
Okay, and then the total project budget of 30,473,764, that includes the retainage of 1,655,000, somewhere in that number?
Yes, that includes retainage.
Yeah, and then it also includes the total of contingency between yours and ours, which is about 247,000. Is that reflected in that total budget number?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, please continue.
All right, so drilling down on the schedule, just to give you guys an overview where we stand, work completed as it relates to phase one, and then obviously the ongoing demo work as it relates to phase two. As far as completed work, I'm showing stair 2 rubber. I know we waited a long time for this material. Unfortunately, I'm showing it as substantially complete. We're not 100%. I just learned from the vendor that we are short on a few pieces. We're missing a few stair nosings in stairwell number 2 that go down into the basement area. And then we're short a couple floor tiles. I believe there's a few floor tiles that we still need. So we are in the process of tracking that down. I don't have a delivery date yet, but as soon as I have better information, of course, I'll share that with everybody. The hydro seeding is done. We were able to get some sod and put that down as well on the south end of the building and north side at the banks on the north and south. That's complete, as well as the plantings for phase one. Within the gym, the wall padding has been completed since the last time we got together, including the floor base. We do have a TCO with some conditions for the gymnasium right now. We're dealing with a hardware issue on the gym divider. We are chasing down essentially a retrofit for the divider to put in new hardware. It would be a no-cost item to the town. We're simply going to swap out the hardware that's there with hardware that would be considered ADA compliant. But I understand that the gym is in full use at this point, and hopefully we can get this hardware issue resolved very shortly to put that divider into full service. As far as work in progress, the punch list is still an ongoing effort. believe we're down to roughly 20 items or so. We're taking a closer look at the items that have been flagged by the owner. There are items within the owner's punch list that would be considered a day 2 component for the project that would be outside the scope of this project. So we do need to compile that list. I believe there's probably 15 to 20 items in that category that we'll have to review and discuss, and hopefully we can bring that to the next committee meeting. Other work that's in progress, obviously the demo for phase 2 is actually going on as we speak. I'm in the trailer now in Newington, and their guys are working double shifts. So we've got a second shift crew of about half a dozen guys working on demo. Got a couple guys in a lift right now taking down the old chimney. So they're in a lift taking that down by hand. Work that's coming up on the horizon. So obviously we've got what we're showing right now on our look ahead schedule. We've got a couple more weeks of demo, of the heavy demo of the building. And starting in November, we want to bring the envelope trades on board to start the concrete and masonry that's going to complete the perimeter of the police station on the east and south side of the police station. We're going to have new framing and masonry veneer on the south and east side. Critical milestones, again, just pushing, right now it's about pushing phase 2, pushing through the rest of the trades that we still need to get on site next month. We're trying our best to avoid, the winter weather challenges. I'm hoping we can do that with concrete masonry. We may not be so lucky, so we need to evaluate that closely. Hopefully we have another mild winter like we did last year. And then obviously the landscaping aspect of this going into the winter. Obviously we're not doing any hydro seeding. That may be something that is put off until the spring. But we're trying to get everything else, crammed into this year to get everything else situated. I just want to jump back to other work that's in progress, just to bring everybody up to speed. We had a couple locations where we had some water infiltration, one of them being on the south side of the community center. We had a small water infiltration on the south side within the lobby of the Parks and Rec department. We were able to peel back some of the cast stone on the south side so we could get a better look at the wall cavity. We were able to pinpoint the source of the water infiltration, and we had some waterproofing that we had to address. That was addressed today and resealed. As soon as that material cures properly, we'll do a water test on it to ensure that we don't have any more water infiltration at that location, and we'll put everything back together. We also had a water infiltration instance in the gymnasium. We did meet with the roofer. We want to obviously rule out the roof as being a culprit for that water leak. We feel pretty confident that it's not the roof and may be likely attributed to one of the cleanouts from the roof drain piping. So we are getting a water test this week to rule out the roof, and we'll keep you updated on what we find there.
Okay, and that is in the south end, east and west, south end of the gym?
Yeah, I believe it's in the southeast corner.
Is there any questions on that, Mr. Frank?
Rod Mortensen.
Yes, Rod, go ahead, please.
Frank, not the water that was in the, I'm going to call it the vestibule at the front, but the actual water in the gym itself, how much was it and how many locations roughly? Like it was a little puddle? Was it a lot or little?
I didn't physically see the leak, but I was told that it was a very small leak. It was a puddle of water, maybe 3 or 4 inches in diameter. There wasn't a ton of water.
Not that this is possible, but if you look at, it was my understanding that the gym was used over the weekend, volleyball, basketball, et cetera. And of all the events that I've been in there, it's not uncommon for kids to either spill a water bottle, leaky water bottle, whatever. I mean, it would be nice if that was what it was, but it's just something to look at when, you know, how sometimes water is hard to track down. You got to look at all possibilities. I don't know if it was what that could be attributed to it, but obviously we need to know.
Yep, and I really hope that's all it is, but we want to, you know, from our end, we want to do our due diligence too, and just make sure we don't have a bigger issue
Yep.
going on.
Understood.
Gail, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I believe it must be the same leak in the community center. Somebody showed me a picture of it, and it was substantially muddy, I believe, even though it was small, there was mud. So I doubt it was like a spilled water bottle, but in any event, I know, again, this water issue had been talked about extensively earlier in the process, and you said to address this, you did a spot waterproofing of one small spot. Is that common, or do you to just have to address a small spot, or is there a potential that this waterproofing really should have been done a little bit across the whole length of the wall?
Frank?
It was done across the whole length of the wall. We're talking about a very small area where water got in, where the waterproofing didn't return back to the perimeter wall. I don't see this as a, you know, an epidemic throughout the whole project. You know, we did have a commissioning agent for the building envelope. We did have all the air vapor barrier inspected by the third-party testing agency that was hired by the town. So I really don't see any issues. That this was really an isolated incident, and it was a very small space in the wall where water got in.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Frank, I wanted to add, if I can,
Go
it's Chris
ahead,
O'Neill, I want to add to this.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Chris.
Part of it also was a grading issue up against the building where water was finding its way into a brick weep hole. Then following the brick shelf down into the wall cavity that eventually found that one portion that Frank mentioned where we had to touch up the waterproofing. So they'll have to regrade around a couple brick vents to address that.
That's all right.
Everybody's got to get their 2 cents in.
That may be a member of the public with their hand up. Go ahead, Chris. No problem.
I think that pretty much covered it. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that the brick weep holes that the water was getting into,
Yeah.
they'll regrade around that as well.
All right.
Yeah,
So
that's a good point,
you
Chris.
feel fairly confident then you've addressed both of these issues, and we'll be able to move on.
Yeah, we did, you know, as Chris pointed out, we did reach out to the landscaper. He does have to come back and do some minor grading adjustments along that exterior wall on the south side of the community center.
Okay. All right, and you'll report any updates to the committee on that?
Yes, will do.
All right, Frank, why don't you go ahead, please?
All right, so COPs that I'm presenting this evening, I've got 10 COPs, starting with COP 312. This was about 6 weekends where the abatement crew, this is really specific to the abatement that we did early on, starting in August. And we've compiled that time. That expediting for the abatement is going back to the CM contingency. So there's a $0 increase to the GMP. The next one, 313, that is to, I'm sorry, this is phase 1. I'm thinking of phase 2. This is phase 1. We had a storm line that was essentially a redundant setup along the south side of the community center. And we had sent an RFI into the design team, and they ultimately said that we could remove this storm pipe. There was a storm structure attached to it, and we're taking a credit on both of those items. for $9,573.03. That's a give back to the town. 315, we talked about this one at the last committee meeting, I believe. We had an incident where a condensate tank was damaged. We don't know who caused the damage. It's not really worth a debate at this point. We got the work done, and we're utilizing CM contingency funds to cover the cost. So there's $0 increase to the GMP. 318. So this is the phase 2 storm line work. We've got roughly 220 feet of new storm line to install. This is a 15-inch diameter reinforced plastic piping with new storm structures. There's 2 storm structures included in this. And we did work with the town to do some value engineering. There were some storm structures and piping that we eliminated because they felt that it wasn't required. So we got this down, was around 30,000 when we started this. And through the coordination with the town, we brought this down to 23,754.38. COP 321 is to deal with lighting issue that we had up on the 3rd floor within the police department. So when we abated, we had to remove some of the light fixtures up on the 3rd floor. We had to obviously put something back. We couldn't leave the space in the dark. So this is the cost to put back temporary wiring and lighting up on the 3rd floor for $4,101.65. 322 is to put in plywood about 160 feet. This would encompass the parapet wall on the south and east elevation. There's 160 feet in total, and the total cost, labor, and the material is $1,513. 323, again, similar to the condensate tank crack. We had a beam detector on the 2nd floor conference room that was damaged. There was no way for us to determine who had caused the damage. And rather than have a debate, we'd rather just get the work done. We'll utilize CM contingency funds, so there's no increase to the town to do the work. So that's what that is. COP 324, we had a small charge from our temp fence contractor, and as you guys know, we've reconciled allowances, giving them back. So we're utilizing CM contingency funds. In this case, it was a small relocation so that we could open up some more bus parking adjacent to our trailer. 325 is to get low voltage wiring within the art room. There's a fan specifically identified for the art room, potentially for future equipment. Should there be a kiln or something of that nature in that room, there would be low voltage controls into that room to control the exhaust fan that's sitting over that space for $1,595.80. And then 326 is the $20,000 give back that I talked about earlier. Again, as we get through the course of this phase 2 demo and put back at the police station, we're getting more of a comfort level where we stand in terms of the completed work and how much is left in the contingency, and also knowing that the town has a tight budget at this point in time. So there's a $20,000 give back there, still P326. All of that nets out to a net add of $1,391.80.
I just had a quick question that perhaps the 2 counselors on the committee could answer for us. Has the agreement with the Board of Ed now terminated or expired in terms of the buses arrangement while we're doing the construction? Or does that go on till we're completely done?
I can't speak to it specifically because I'm not aware of. It was my understanding that it was going to continue until we were complete, but they might be looking to try to add some more buses over there and less at Willard Avenue would be my guess.
Okay. I'm just curious as to the timing, that's all. Okay, are there any questions?
Joe?
on yeah,
I can address that for you. Actually, I have a copy of the agreement on Garfield Street.
Yes, please.
And the statement in it is that the area shall be used for the duration of the town hall renovation, including the demolition of the current town hall structure.
Oh, great.
So that'll
Okay.
finish off the project.
Thank you, James.
You're welcome.
Okay, are there any questions on the COPs that Frank just reported on? If not, I'm sorry. If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the total of $1,391.30.
391.80.
80, I'm sorry. Someone kindly put.
Rod Mortensen. Go ahead,
Gail
Gail. Go ahead, Gail.
Yeah. Gail Badreko, I move to approve the COPs for review and approval, total of $1,391.80.
Is there a second? Mr.
Second, Rod Mortensen.
Any discussion?
Just one question, Joe, if you would.
Yes, Mr. Minor, please.
Real quick, Frank, 318, was that due to the separation of the north part of the building and the south instead of the one that was originally designed? Or am I thinking of that correctly?
So if I could try to sum this up, there's really two things going on. One is this stems from the fact that originally we were going into the tunnels with two separate lines with a storm and sanitary, and then making a connection, somewhere downstream. We couldn't do that, basically. The tunnels just wouldn't allow it, and where we were supposed to tie in didn't exist on the drawings. So that's why we temporarily tied into the boiler room. Had we been able to use the tunnel and tie in where the drawing showed, we probably would have, come out of this pretty unscathed in terms of not having to add a storm line. The other aspect of this too, now that we did make a temporary connection, adding the storm line this way, from a sequencing standpoint, obviously is a benefit to the project, to keep all of this on track and, try to keep all this work happening this year instead of the next year.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, the motion's been made and seconded. Test your minds on this. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, the ayes have it. Motion passes. Frank, please continue.
Okay, so I've got 10 more COPs here that we've, like I said, we're either vetting with subs or working with the design team to
Excuse
vet.
me 1 second. I always make this here on Mr. Barron. I have to apologize to him. Consider to take action on fund transfers. Mr. Barron?
Yes, I'm looking for a motion that the committee transfer $1,391.80 from the owner's contingency account number 3111099912, to the construction account number 3111099911.
So moved, Rod Mortensen.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so passed.
Okay. So back to the approximate revisions we're going through. There's actually 11 here, starting with 251, the signage revision. So through the review process of the signage package, there's been some changes along the way, and those changes would have cost implications. And we're currently reviewing those changes with the signage vendor. We had initially put a value on this of roughly $2,300. Based on the most recent changes that I've seen, it's considerably more than that. So we are evaluating the overall cost of this to see what maybe there's something there that's the driving force behind the increase. So by the next committee meeting, we'll have some more information to share with you on that. 266, the flagpole. So this one, I know Chris, maybe Chris has an update. I know Chris was working with the structural team from DTC on reevaluating the brackets, basically creating a larger bracket to accept the tapered flagpoles. That one is going to be critical pretty soon as we take the building down. We're basically all the way down to where that chimney stack is. So from the west side, from the from the parking lot at the police station, you could see a good chunk of the new town hall, and pretty soon, we'll be unveiling that main entry on the west side. So it would be nice to get the flagpoles in and put the flags on, turn the lights on.
Chris
Chris, did you
O'Neill,
have that one?
Chris still with us? I'm sorry, Frank. Is Chris still with us?
Still here, Joe.
Can you add anything to the discussion on the 266, change order 266?
Yeah. Had a discussion with the engineer at DTC yesterday to go over the revised detail. He wanted to propose an alternate solution, so I discussed it on site with Chuck over at Downs to get his ideas on it. And I'm going to go back to DTC tomorrow and finalize with them. So I expect to see a detail by the end of this week for sure.
Okay, does any member have any questions on that item? Okay, Frank.
All right, so the next one, COP 300, has to do with a couple things. One is power for the refrigerator units in human services. Right now, we've got a couple outlets on one circuit to deal with the refrigerators. These are rather large units that are going to require dedicated circuits, and we do want to put those on standby power. So there's a cost in this COP to deal with that aspect. That's about $6,000. The rest of the cost out of that $29,595.09 is to put in ventilation requirements for these units. Essentially, another split system to cool that space because these units do generate quite a bit of heat load. So we've got a rough order of magnitude established for that. I know that the town wants to get these refrigerators hooked up and powered. At the very least, I would ask the committee to release us on implementing the added power and putting it on standby it's a $6,000 item. So I'm putting that out there. We can come back to that one. I'll just keep going here through this.
Joe, Rod Mortensen, I had a couple of questions.
Mr. Mortensen.
Frank, I got a few different quick questions. Is this space right now air conditioned or not?
Yes.
And is it?
It has ventilation. Whether or not it's air conditioned, it's a storage room basically right now.
Okay.
And it does have ventilation, but there's not enough there to.
Yeah. Would you know offhand if they are 2 or 3 door units? I'm assuming one's a refrigerator and one's a freezer.
I'm not sure.
We don't.
I can answer that question. It's Chris O'Neill.
Go ahead.
I believe there's two door units in there, and I believe they may both be freezers, but they're both 2 door units.
Okay. I have a problem with the AC in it. I got a little bit of experience in this in the restaurant business. So I had a non-air conditioned kitchen with a 2-door freezer. These are all the same size. They're pretty standard. 2 2-door refrigerators and another hardening freezer, which is just a super freezer with no air in it. And I also don't know who ordered these, if they bought typically for a kitchen, because a kitchen normally runs warmer, you would buy, I hope they did, bottom mount compressors instead of top, because you can have 7 to 8 degrees easily between the floor and the ceiling in the kitchen area. And I read something about, the food spoiling in there. With as warm as my kitchen got, those units are designed to work in that. Now, it may not be comfortable if nobody's working in there. It may be warm, but it's not going to be 90 degrees. I don't know how big an area. I was going to try and get down there today to take a look, but I don't know about food spoiling. Yes, they should be on separate dedicated circuits, and yes, they should be tied into the standby power. But I don't know about putting air in there just so that it would be cool where these are working. They're designed with a pretty big parameter of operating temperature. So I'd like to get a little more information on that. A refrigerator, 2 doors, typically half horsepower, and if one of them's a freezer, they can be anywhere from 3/4 to 1 1/4 or 1 1/2. But I had way more than this in an enclosed space with no air, and they obviously held temperature fine for both refrigerator and freezer. So if it's a case of just someone thinks it should be as comfortable as an operating office, it doesn't need to be. It also doesn't mean that it's going to be 90 degrees in there, but again, not knowing, not seeing it, I can't answer it. But I'm a little skeptical of spending roughly $23,000 to put a split in there just so that it's cooler where these are in a storage area. But there's a lot of questions I know that need to be answered first.
Thank you, Rod. Mr. Minor?
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chris O'Neill, do you know offhand how many square feet that is? While
You're
you're-
talking about the storage room itself?
Yeah, the storage room itself.
Probably only 100 square feet at the most. It's pretty small.
Okay.
How many
So-
square feet was that?
100.
Okay.
Yeah, about 100.
Is it
That
that
is pretty
small,
small.
Chris? I thought it was bigger than that.
Yeah, it's a pretty small room. I mean,
Yeah.
it was always on our, drawings as a storage room.
Right.
So,
That's what
Okay.
it's supposed to be used for, actually.
Right. And I believe those units came over from Human Services. I don't think they were purchased unless,
Yeah,
Somebody
they came over, yeah.
okay, so they just carried them over from where they had them. And the other thing is, and I don't know if this is a possibility or not for Chris, does it make sense to put a captive air unit in there just to try to exhaust the heat versus trying to put an HVAC system into that room?
I kind of posed that question at DTC, whether it needed to be exhaust or cooling, or how they want to address it. And their response was the cooling. I don't know if that means it's the better response to the question or just their preference. But it could very well also just need to exhaust some hot air out of there if it is getting to be a little too much instead of cooling.
Okay. And it was my understanding that there is there is airflow in the room with a discharge and a return for the room. It's just not separately air conditioned, as a tempered space like the rest of it. Am I correct in that?
yes.
Okay, so it does have some. It just is just not adequate for what they're saying the usage is. Okay, thank you. That's all I've got.
Thank you, Mr. Minor. One other quick point on that. Do we know who determined that this is needed and when that was determined? I take that as.
Joe. Chris O'Neill here. I believe it was a question posed by somebody at the town about heat in that room, and that led me to look into it with DTC to see what the heat load in that room would wind up being with all the refrigerators they put in there. I can't recall exactly who I had the discussion with that was concerned about the heat in that room, but I know it was somebody in the town.
But it never appeared in the bid docs. Is that a correct assumption or understanding?
Correct.
Okay, why don't you move on? Go ahead. Frank.
Can I just ask a question, Joe?
Yeah, go ahead, please. I didn't see.
No, that's all right. You said that this originally was supposed to be a storage room, correct? So where was the room where the refrigerators were supposed to go? I mean, how did that get dropped or reassigned or?
It's Chris O'Neill. The original drawing showed it as a storage room, called it a storage room. And I believe there were a couple boxes in our plans that showed refrigerators. So I don't know kind of what the intent was originally. I think it was supposed to have refrigerators and not supposed to. It may have got lost somewhere in there, but maybe if you look at the plans, there's also another room, the distribution room, that has refrigerators as well. So I don't know if the intent was that the smaller residential refrigerators would get placed in the small storage room and the larger ones were going to get placed in the distribution room. In reality, what they wanted to do was put the larger refrigerators in the storage room. So those put out a lot more heat than the residential refrigerators and freezers that they have in the distribution room. So that's kind of tipping the scales towards, overheating that room possibly.
Now, has there been actual food spoilage so far?
They had a power outage shortly after taking over their space. I don't know what happened after that, whether they have them plugged in or not. But originally they had some spoilage due to a power outage that killed their circuits, or not a power outage. They flipped some breakers based on overloading circuits.
Yeah, that's what sparked this whole thing.
Okay, yeah, because I mean, their big season is coming up very, very, very shortly for Thanksgiving and Christmas. So hopefully we can get something done, at least to get us through that season. Thank you.
Okay, Frank. Thank you, Gil. Go ahead, Frank.
Yes, sir. 307, 308. Again, we showed these last time. Just have a couple allowances that are out there that we do intend to give back at the end of the job. Right now, we're showing a $10,000 give back for the temporary toilets and a $20,000 give back for the dumpsters. Then,
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
Mr. Patat has his hand raised.
yes, Paul, please go ahead.
Yes, while everyone was talking about the room that contains the freezer units, I took a walk over there at Human Services. So it's about a 10 by 10 room, I think, that 100 square foot number, but I did not see any supply or return for any type of duct work inside that particular room. And then the larger room that's based in has some supply and some return on the walls, but nothing overhead.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Frank?
okay, yeah, continuing on this list here, 327. So this is another reconciliation having to do specifically with trade allowances. $33,300 give back is anticipated. Most of the give back in this particular COP is directly related to the allowances we held for the abatement contract as it relates to phase 2. So we'll continue to track that. I see no reason why the allowances can't go back in full to the town. I know there was some discussion with AAIS on some of utilizing some of these allowances. So we are waiting for some correspondence from them to see what this final credit is going to come out to be. 328 is to deal with the power that I mentioned earlier, where right now we've got a temporary setup on the 3rd floor. This would be to put something back more permanent, including some heating that would be needed in that space. And we've got a rough order of magnitude placed on that, almost 15 grand. 329 is a function of some of the demo that's taken place that may warrant replacement of sidewalk. I believe we were vetting this with the design team. We may not end up proceeding with sidewalk there. So this dollar amount that's tracked will likely get reduced and maybe down to 0. Although I think we are adding back some bituminous. So we're evaluating that one. 330, again, related to phase 2, we've got some structural concerns around the perimeter of the police dispatch behind the EFIS over that bay window at dispatch. There's some steel there that has to get re-supported. So I know, Chris was looking at this and trying to come up with a way to support that and, obviously conceal it within the wall and come up with the most cost-effective solution there. So we're showing roughly a $3,300 rough order of magnitude to address the structural concerns. And then 331, we understand that the town is interested in pursuing an irrigation system for the project. And we do have some initial costs from one vendor. We do need to vet this because there were some exclusions within that proposal. So we do need to bolt on some other scopes of work, specifically electrical and plumbing, to give the town a complete irrigation system. So we're looking at that. We have a rough order magnitude of roughly 36,000 for that irrigation system. And then lastly, 332, that's the other contingency give back that I spoke of earlier. Another 20,000 is what we would anticipate by the next committee meeting. And the approximate values, when you tally everything up, it's a net add. Of course, with the give back in COP 332, it's a net add of 21,826.09.
Okay. Mr. Minor, you had your hand up?
Thank you. I think it was 328. James, could you just page back for a second? Yeah, 328. Frank, is that in addition to the unit that was discussed at our last meeting
Yes.
for dispatch area?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any sense in combining the two systems, or is that just not something that's feasible?
It's really not something that's feasible. I think you're talking about the data room for the police station, right? That's a separate split system. And this would be strictly perimeter heating.
Okay.
For the police department.
Okay. No, that's all I needed on that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Frank, it's obvious the committee has additional questions on COP 300 for the human service refrigerators. And it's also obvious that the committee's concerned about resolving that issue as quickly as we can and put us in a position to correct that issue for human services. Apparently, there was some poor communication initially with this in terms of getting it into the bid. Not quite sure how that happened, but it happened. And that exasperates the issue for us as committee members, given the financial status of the contingency fund. So I would ask you to go back and get the answers to the questions of Mr. Mortensen and others. And let's discuss it, and then I'll convey that information to the committee, and the committee will discuss it amongst themselves over the next few days, and then we'll get back to you on our disposition of that item.
Councilor Minor has his hand raised, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Minor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I think Rod was alluding to it before, actually Gail had questioned it as well. Does it make sense to at least proceed with the electrical portion of it? So at least we can get it tied into the standby circuit in the event we do have a future outage before we have a chance to get back to this. I just would hate to see a spoil issue again.
The only problem is we haven't seen any change orders on these, the actual written and approved change orders. And
okay.
Historically,
I did mention that roughly $6,000 of that COP is associated with just the electrical portion. So
yeah.
We would be, if we wanted to proceed with something, it would be, giving us the go ahead, for $6,000 to do the electrical piece. Obviously, that's just the trade cost. There's a little bit of markup there, so.
Yeah, I just think it commits us to the whole package once we do that. And again, we haven't seen.
No, it would just be the electrical. We wouldn't do anything related to the HVAC portion. We could break this out. We could simply put together one COP for the electrical, and we could table the other costs associated with the HVAC.
So you're saying it's underpowered?
Yes.
Well, it's not on standby power, correct?
Well, it's not on standby, and there's not enough normal power there either to accommodate.
Yeah, we had this problem throughout the community center. Now it's here.
Right, so if we go ahead,
Rewarding bad behavior somewhere along the line. I'm not accusing Downs or anybody else. I'm not putting a figure, but somewhere there's been bad behavior and not paying attention to these things. And now the committee is asked to do this. And we know we don't have, I mean, the honest answer is most of the taxpayer money we put away for our part of the contingency is expired. And we would have to do something. We're throwing dollars around here and we really need to know where we are. We need some time to think this out. And I would stick with the recommendation of looking at this as a holistic approach. Let's talk among ourselves. Let's get some answers. And then within the next few days, we'll get back to Frank in some collective fashion to give him direction.
okay, so just a clarification, Joe, from Frank, this is adjusting the correct amperage for the circuits, correct? As well as putting it on standby for that dollar value discussed?
Yes, I mean, we know we need dedicated circuits, which we don't have. And we know that we need to tie into a standby, panel to feed these refrigerators.
Okay, just a follow up to that. We do have Mark on the line from Colliers. This is also being tracked, I'm presuming.
Mark, are you there? James, did Mark sign in tonight?
Thought he was there.
Yeah, I'm here. Had trouble unmuting. Yeah, we're tracking. We're tracking as a,
Okay, thank you. That's it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Frank, continue, please.
Okay, nothing new to report under rejected COPs. Under requisitions, the last item here, just to give you some insight on the last requisition that was processed, which was September. Through the end of September, we put roughly $26 million of work in place. That does exclude our retainage, so that leaves us roughly with 3.7 million to finish. That does include the retainage, and the retainage that's currently held on contracts is just over $1 million. So percentage-wise, we're, through the end of September, we're roughly 90% complete, and we're working on the next requisition at this point for October.
Very good. Okay, any other business pertinent to the committee?
I had a couple photos, Joe.
Like to show. That's right. That's pertinent to the committee.
Yeah, there's not a lot really. Wish I had more, but it's all kind of the same thing, really. Just to show you some demo of the old town hall. This was a picture, I believe, taken earlier in the week. You can see the chimney that's actually coming down at this point, and I think we're going to see that in one of the other photos. Is that chimney coming down? And off to the left side of that photo is the remnants of the elevator that is next to the police station. So we've peeled all that back at this point, and we continue to proceed on that side so that we can expose that east end of the police station. That's going to enable the new concrete work, and then in turn enable all the framing and masonry for the new veneer on the east side of the police station. And just another shot, you can kind of see, like I was mentioning before, we're starting to unveil the west side of the new town hall as we continue to demo up to and heading north of that old chimney stack. And that photo was taken today. You can see the boom lift, pretty sizable boom lift. It's set up right now. A couple guys in that bucket, and they're taking the brick down by hand and just working their way around that chimney stack. And they continue to work on that as we speak.
Thank you, Frank.
That's all I had.
Just so you know, Frank, Just so you know, Frank, Mr. Mortensen has experience with chimney takedowns, he told me. He's been a volunteer. He'd be willing.
Does he want a job? We can hire him.
Yeah. I volunteer for a lot of things, but I'm not doing another chimney.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, just a moment. I've got one more for you.
Yes, sir, James, you go ahead. Still there, James?
Yep, this one was supplied by Mr. Boutot, just so that you guys could see the process of where they were at in the chimney demo. He just took it just
Wow.
shortly ago.
Pretty cool.
So it's come down quite a ways.
Yes. Great, thank you, James.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other business pertinent to the committee? Just so you know, Downs has been collecting bricks in our behalf, and I had a discussion with some of the members today. We thought it'd be a good idea to have each member have a brick, and we all sign off on it as a keepsake. So that is your reward for all the hard times and months that you put into this committee. But listen, you got something. But no,
Yeah, speaking of bricks, Joe, sorry to interrupt, reminds me that we also removed the cornerstone at the gym from 1950. And it's actually sitting on a pallet outside our trailer. And encased in this cornerstone is a time capsule. So it'll be pretty cool to, take a look inside and see what's in it.
And this is one that we didn't know about, correct?
Yeah, I don't think anybody realized that there was a time capsule. I've always seen the cornerstone, but not sure everybody knew there was a time capsule cast into that piece of stone.
Great, thank you. Okay, public participation. James, do we have any member of the public wishing to address the committee?
Currently, at this point, we have one member of the public on, no hand raised at this moment. But seeing as we're sort of in that area, I'm actually going to use it for myself for just a moment for the committee.
Okay.
But I'm going to direct this over to Downs more so. I'm getting complaints from residents about construction vehicles in front of the ballot box. So I just indicated that I would contact you guys to see if you can have the vendors or whoever's coming in not parking in the area, just so it's easy to see.
Okay.
Just
I'll relay that information too to our field guys and reinforce that.
I know a lot of it because of the fencing being right there for the entrance to the old community center and the ramping. It's probably much more convenient to park there, but it causes issues. We have put out a A-frame sign for it, so that's a little bit more noticeable, and the larger sign in front of the ballot box. But just if we can see if we can just get them to move a little bit further down where that kick out goes, that'll just make life a lot easier.
Okay.
Thanks. At this point, nobody else has raised their hand.
Thank you. Comments by committee members? Okay. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Rod Mortensen.
Is there a second?
Yeah, second, Gail Perico.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
Thank you very much. We stand adjourned. Frank, I got you out at 6.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, everybody.
Take care.
Good night.
Good night.
Right now.
yet. Okay, go ahead and stop live stream.